here in Miranda, important elections today in Venezuela. Unlike what the mainstream media is saying, there's mass participation across the country. We think it's important to actually come here with the Council on Hemispheric Affairs, support these people's democracy, try to provide a counter narrative to everything that the New York Times and CNN and Fox News is saying. We've traveled around Caracas in the country today. There's more than 200 election observers representing more than 80 countries. So it's really an honor to be here to talk to the Venezuelan people. And how many contrasts can we make between U.S. democracy and Venezuelan democracy? We see Bolivian democracy in action, Cuba, Nicaragua, this gigantic shift of momentum across South America and the world, and important questions about what change will come now with the Trump to Biden transition. But we understand all too well that imperialism is imperialism, regardless of a change of faces in the executive office.
Venezuela, all the partners in the important anti-imperialist alliance. This is Professor Dani Sω. I'm in the Bronx, New York. I just returned from Caracas yesterday. I wanted to share a few impressions for your important conference and the work that you do. 2020 Caracas and these elections that we were all a part of. There were more than 250 election observers invited by the PSUV, and then hundreds of others invited by the official election, National Election Observer organization. And I was in Petare and in other popular barrios, neighborhoods, where we were able to inspect and observe these parliamentary elections. The blockade has been incredibly brutal against the Venezuelan people. Nonetheless, 31% of the voting populace came out. The opposition is very fractionalized. You have the more moderate opposition versus the U.S.-sponsored right-wing Guaido spearheaded opposition, which calls for everyday stricter and crueler economic war on the people. How does this economic war affect everyday people? It doesn't affect the elites. The economic elites is still a oligarchy that works very closely with imperialism intact in Caracas. It's the everyday people that are the most affected. So during this Christmas season, many people can't go back home to see their families. Horrible gasoline shortages, no toilet paper, no toothpaste, everyday things that we would take for granted. The arepas and the ayacas, the typical Christmas food, internet, social media, these types of things are just not present in the lives of everyday people. Still, lo que se llama la cultura de resolver, Venezuelans always find a way to push through and to keep fighting. So despite the blockade, I don't think that people are completely demoralized or disheartened. They continue to fight. They're a Chavista people. They believe in this revolution. I think the 31% participation is also reflective of the fact that the opposition is so weak and that the PSUV had this one in the bag, if you will. Venezuela continues to play an extremely significant role internationally. Caracas in 2020 is akin to what Havana has been for 61 years now, or Algiers in 1970. It's a revolutionary epicenter of activity and third world unity, internationalist unity. So it was an honor for me to be there as a representative of the Council on Hemispheric Affairs and Anti-Conquista and other anti-imperialist organizations, and then to meet revolutionaries and internationalists from Asia, Africa, South America, the Caribbean, the Middle East, Europe, and of course the US as well. Telesur and VTV show us that people's media from the South, for the South, is still possible. I work very closely with Telesur and Venezuela de Televisión, the national TV broadcasting system. And it's very significant that across the street from Telesur, you have the headquarters of the Bolivarian intelligence offices of the military. Of course, the opposition and their imperialist backers, that is what they would first like to target. A people's voice, a people's media, news from the South, for the South, by the oppressed, for the oppressed. So it's very symbolic that across the street you have really a bulwark of the Bolivarian state, of the military in defense of Telesur. We saw tragically this week 28 Venezuelans, 28 and counting, died, drowned, fleeing to Trinidad and Tobago. Another testament to how cruel the U.S. Full blockade, airtight blockade is, a diplomatic blockade, a military blockade, an economic blockade, and a military blockade. And I think we have to contextualize this tragedy, just like we contextualize the tragedy of migrants fleeing neocolonialism in AFRICOM, in Africa, the bombing and recolonization of Libya, of Syria, the ongoing U.S. occupation of Afghanistan. Likewise, we should contextualize the 5 million Venezuelans who've been forced to flee as a result of these stiff U.S. sanctions. Every day, the world is more multipolar, as Hugo Chavez talked about, pluripolaridad.
Venezuela, 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 bandera venezolana. Venezuela, 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 bandera venezolana. Ay, Venezuela, Venezuela, tierra grande, inmenso tu pabellón, suelo revolucionario, combatiente y vencedor. Venezuela, 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 bandera venezolana.
Ay, Venezuela, somos pueblo de igualdad, respeto y soberanía, el futuro verdadero, con que soñamos un día.
Venezuela, Venezuela, bandera venezolana.
Ay, Venezuela, una juventud de lucha, de cambio y renovación.